Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. In the Soviet Union, Pravda had a 60% rule, which meant that 60% of their news stories had to be credible. They knew that in order to get people to listen to their propaganda, the public was going to have to believe that they were a respectable news agency. But times have changed. The Soviet Union fell, and now some U.S. news agencies are making no attempt to be credible at all. Here's a story from MSN News. Alarming new map shows large swaths of New Zealand towns and cities underwater by 2050. New Kiwi study shows climate change could cause 20 meters of sea level rise. And then they have this map showing parts of Auckland underwater. But NOAA says that sea level at Auckland is rising 1.29 millimeters per year. That means it would take more than 700 years for sea level to rise 1 meter. There aren't a lot of active tide gauges in New Zealand, but the one at Bluff Southland Harbour shows 1.66 millimeters per year. At Brisbane, Australia, it's 1.21 millimeters per year. At Newcastle, Australia, it's 1.98 millimeters per year. That's a little bit higher than the other places, but it's less than 8 inches per century. NOAA doesn't have any records from Auckland past the year 2000, but during the 50 years prior to 2000, sea level barely rose at all. Sydney Harbour has 130 years of continuous records, and they show 0.65 millimeters per year. That's just about nothing. I took this picture of the tide gauge at Sydney Harbour. You can see it located on the left side of Fort Denison. And this is what Fort Denison looked like in the 19th century. The high water mark hasn't changed at all. These pictures show 130 years of Bondi Beach near Sydney. The only thing that's changed in 130 years is the presence of the climate crazies in 2019. In 1989, The Guardian, Canberra Times, and a Commonwealth expert group said that sea level would rise between 1 and 4 meters by the year 2030. They were off by about a factor of 1,000, but they still persist with the same misinformation. The only difference is they've bumped it up from 4 meters up to 20 meters of sea level rise. And they're doing the same thing in the U.S. Forbes magazine is predicting that people are going to mass flee the U.S. coast. But the National Ocean Service says the exact opposite. They say those are the fastest growing places in the U.S. and that people are going to continue to move there. After spending 8 years pimping sea level rise propaganda, Barack Obama just bought a mansion on the beach at Martha's Vineyard. Obviously, he doesn't believe any of this nonsense. The press no longer has any credibility. Solzhenitsyn said, "Hastiness and superficiality are the psychic diseases of the 20th century, and more than anywhere else this disease is reflected in the press." Climate reporting has become nothing more than a parody of reality. They want to influence the public and policymakers with their nonsense, but we can't afford to let that happen. Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science and propaganda for a long time.